Just as words put together by a writer draw one into a present-past imaginary trajectory, so also spatiotactile implications of a built or unbuilt architecture build words and sentences to convey an imagination. This studio inverses the process to use words and their potent imaginaries to drive reactions, break down walls, and spark crossovers between disciplines to explore the intrinsic conceptual power of a word idea.
So these are some random words which you're seeing, and the question mark is a kind of question for not only for you but also for us. Having practiced for close to 25 years now, and these questions are going to persist and have existed from the beginning while we have um, gone through the process of looking at architecture and various other things related to it. So the words that you see here are indicative, but I think it's also to do with the kind of things that we have been thinking about the idea of the narrative and this or the story, which has become so extremely important at this time, especially when we are actually face to face only through video. So the story which unfolds is something which has to be imagined. The questions of things like consumerism and various other kinds of desire are something which is very beautifully captured by Duchamp, where the glass separates the desire, and once you buy something, it's the end of its potency to hold any desire anymore. Some of the terms which are also architectural, and whether one calls it scale or size, I think it's at various levels of sensitive involvement with the projects. It matters, especially as we have at these times of we have become extremely aware of our individual existence in isolation. The questions of history are something which is because one always wonders if certain pages of history were not recorded, or if the pages went missing, what would have happened? And because histories leave a lineage and a development of ideas which happen based on previous works, and there are correlations which may be subconscious or sometimes even a literal tool in that sense. So the presence of or the persistence of certain patterns and certain kinds of architecture, even when political systems change, is quite amazing to see that certain concepts are slow in their acceptance to humanity and cultures. And the transformation is gradual, and it continues in very interesting ways. very in real terms, hand in hand with technology. The questions of structure are something which inform architecture so deeply that it's important perhaps to realize that um, to keep it as open-ended as possible, and to see the merit and the possibilities of structure in informing architectural space, and also what is perhaps not felt, or even sometimes not seen, an aspect like light, as to how it can inform space making. Cultural notions of uh, which are very deeply rooted in language is an interesting aspect which we really want to take with students, perhaps even picking up terms which are from their own mother tongue or borrowed languages which they have been familiar with, because each language has can create a completely different meaning, or layers of meanings which perhaps are not fathomable if they are translated into another. So while photographs like this um, convey their resemblance to the past paintings and the kind of light and material, but yet these new works still have an identity of their own. A very important aspect which we are getting familiar with, which is about the idea of um, the tentativeness of things, and perhaps also related in some ways to uncertainty, um, or how lightly one has to touch the ground. These are things so that things can happen. They happen and they leave and they come back again in another form. And perhaps the beauty of the new times um, is that things have greater possibilities because they get to reinvent themselves in cycles, whether it's with festivals or installations or uh, events and biennales, and even even with um, movements which take place. Being human is something which we are all familiar with, and the ways in which the same feeling is so subjective and contextual is quite amazing as to how one interprets it in even through a medium like painting, or which perhaps has even roots in how it um, shows its urbanism or its isolation, or its relationship to nature and various other things. So the same thing is imagined and lived in so many different ways, and its relation to architecture is so strong that and yet, whether it's the difference between self-isolation and detention, although the physical aspect of it and the meaning of it, the physical meaning might be the same, but the psychological meaning of these are extremely different. The larger processes which we live in our societies and nations and countries, the immense importance of the position of how we imagine, our society to form itself and to come together as a group. Uh, Perhaps it's extremely important to position oneself and one's work in this perspective. Um, every position could be right, but it's important to know what the position could be and is imagined. The contrast of the possibilities of extreme urbanism to through this work, which you're seeing at the moment, um, it's very interesting to see that the contrast of this, and perhaps we can't even imagine that this is in the middle of Manhattan, and how a simple thing like structure can actually take very, very different methods of representation and existence. And the bizarreness of certain things can highlight the existence of the new work as well as the old. And the deeper meanings of the simple thing like a grid and how lives play out in this space. I remember deeply the works of Andrei Tarkovsky in this at this time.
Conceptual explorations must be backed by a rigorous outworking of and integration with disciplinary parameters that can help to strengthen your case or adopted posture. And we look forward to enabling that process through exercises and discussions. Thank you.
So welcome to the studio of where we talk about words and think about architecture beyond its utility. Look forward to seeing you all. Thank you.